Welcome to Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
It's that time of week again. I get to sit and talk sports, high school sports in particular, with my numero uno, my buddy Jacob Padilla. We love when the big voice guy comes on. That means we're back together for another week, man. And it was an interesting one, to say the least.
Good to get you back this week, coming in with a good, feeling pretty good after how last week went. And you got another big one this week, huh?
Yeah, so the last third of this season for us, and it's good too, because we just want to stay dialed and ramp it up. We're quietly kind of getting better.
Yeah,
so
that's the scary part for everybody else.
So that it's been a fun team to coach, right?
Yeah.
Just replacing 9 starters on D and a heck of a quarterback, and we're kind of young, so this helps.
Yep, and talking about Westside's 45-3 win over previous number 3 Elkhorn South. That kind of excited about that one to see kind of where Elkhorn South was in relation to we felt that top tier, and we got their answer. Pretty dominant showing from the Warriors there.
Yeah, I think for us, some teams are just a better matchup than others for us, and it's just hard to run the ball.
Yeah,
it's really hard to run the ball.
And 35-0 second quarter, is that right?
Yeah,
that's not easy to do against a team that we know is very good compared to the rest of the state.
It's a good football team.
Yeah,
it's a good football team.
But the question was, would they be able to? Could they keep your defense honest enough with their all-around attack to be able to have success anywhere?
Yeah,
because it's like you said, it's hard to run the ball against these guys. We saw that with Omaha North in week 1, could not get going at all. And then obviously we saw that again this week where you guys kept Shanahan in check, which nobody has done all year.
Yeah, so I think we haven't given up 100-yard rusher since North Platte, which was that 2022?
Yep, couple of years.
So we're very cognizant of that because it helps us do other things on the back end. But I think the game flipped for Elkhorn South on the turnover, the pick 6 from
Quentin
Warren when he stepped in front of a Riggs pass, which, on television or on film, it may look like a bad ball. I actually thought I saw what Madden saw. I thought that was just good play from Quentin. He had no business being there.
Yeah,
he got a good bead and read it and kind of jumped it.
Yeah, your defense came to play. Reed McIntyre 11 tackles, Christian Jones 10 tackles, forced a fumble. You guys forced 3 fumbles on Shanahan, a guy who's pretty good with the ball in his hands. Covered one of them.
We watched a lot of
another pick. Joe Simon.
We watched a lot of Watt. We punch at the football quite a bit. Like it's intentional. We rip strip punch.
And an offense story of the game was Tate Jenkins. 132 yards on the ground on just 14 carries and a touchdown. 3 catches for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty spectacular performance there for a young kid.
Little pocket Hercules. He's small in size, but he's ultra strong. He's really, really good natured. He's a kind kid, and he plays really hard. He practices a lot like he plays. So it's a little easier when you can coach some of your better players really hard.
Yep. Touchdowns at 65 and 76 yards, showing off that explosiveness there for sure. 234 yards for Braylon Warren there, 3 scores. Just another day at the office for the young quarterback there. So you guys looking pretty solid, and now you got rivalry with Creighton Prep coming in, a desperate Creighton Prep team. We'll talk about them a little bit later on, but they need to win that game. Yeah. So you're going to have their full attention, everything ready to go, but coming off of this last week, you guys have shown that you're able to rise to the occasion and take care of business.
Yeah, we'll stay pretty dialed just because it is prep, right? Yeah. I mean, and we're trying to ramp this thing up. We know what's out there ahead of us potentially, and we're just trying to get better and see where we're at the end.
Yep. And fortunately, we have to talk about what happened with Millard South and Lincoln High. 63-0 at halftime, and Lincoln High chose to not play the second half of that game, turn it into a forfeit. So just to provide context for how out of hand that game was, Millard South had 11 offensive plays and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
they had a fumble recovery touchdown, a pick six, a blocked punt return for a touchdown, an 88-yard kickoff return touchdown, and a 39-yard punt return touchdown. They scored every single way possible in that game.
Yeah, they did. And I, because watching the stream with a couple of the coaches and when text started flying, we were quick to say, hey, listen, I mean, I get the fact that Millard South was throwing the ball, but you got to play football. And I think that I didn't have any problems with it. I didn't think it was
8 passes. So you're throwing the ball, but eight passes.
Right. And they started the game with the kick return.
Yeah.
They had the scoop score touchdown, the pick six, and then the punt return. I think that made it 42. So it's not like they didn't have a ton of offensive possessions, and those guys want to play too. So I didn't. That's the fine line.
Yeah, and nobody wants to see this happen. Everybody should be able to play their games full out. I don't know what the solution is to prevent this from happening, just with the landscape of things. I know everybody's talking about transfers and all this stuff, but Millard South isn't the only team that would do this kind of thing to some of these teams at the bottom who just don't have the bodies, the athletes, the sheer numbers to compete. We're already seeing Benson called off their last 2 games, including one against Millard South in week 9 there, just because, they just don't have enough guys to responsibly field a football team that can go out there and can compete.
Yeah.
So it doesn't do anybody good, to have, again, nothing Lincoln High could do in that game was going right for them.
I'm in 100% agreement. And Coach Mackey and Coach Wisdom, I know Coach Mackey talked to Pat Gatzmeyer, AD at Lincoln, and I think everybody was in agreement. I know it's not the way Millard South wants to go about doing it, and it's certainly not the way Lincoln High wants to go about doing it. So I understand.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the popular discussion now is what can the NSAA do? What in general? Obviously, as mentioned, there's a lot of talk about transfers and how that's out of control and all this type of stuff. And
I don't know how you limit school choice.
I'll never be in favor of that.
Me neither.
I've seen
me neither.
From firsthand, I know someone who chose to stay within his home district, had a horrible high school experience there, and I know we've seen people. Isaiah McMorris, he transfers to Bellevue West there. That changes his life.
100%.
Yeah, he would have had the 7-on-7, but if he doesn't transfer there and put up that kind of numbers, does he have the opportunities that he would have, even with what you get out of the 7-on-7 circuit, had he continued playing in an option offense at Millard North?
Yeah, just a lot of uneducated people, right? And typically the empty can rattles the loudest. And I think as long as you have charter schools, vouchers, private schools, you're going to have a hard time legislating, telling people they can't go to school at a certain place, right? And so the popular pushback will be, well, athletics is a privilege and education is a right. Well, when you start denying folks opportunities, I mean, that it gets messy in a hurry.
And again, how many kids use athletics to further their educational opportunities?
100%.
That's a huge part of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, any rules that limit the ability to go anywhere but your home district, whatever, I'll never be in favor of that. Go where you're going to be happy. That's what I want kids.
Where you have opportunity too, and you know,
happiness can mean so many different things to so many different kids, regular students, athletes, kids in other activities. There are all kinds of reasons. Different schools make themselves attractive to students in all kinds of walks of high school.
And what we have to be real careful of, because we almost never look at it from. I've been at Northwest, I coached at North. I'm well aware.
Yes.
Especially internally working in administration at the TAC building. Again, a lot of uneducated people, but I say all that to say, you have to be careful about the educators that are at those said institutions too, because if I'm part of the STEM program or the baccalaureate program where I'm good at band and you want diversification, what people don't talk about enough, JP, is sometimes teachers, they don't want just who's in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? There's parents that are in those neighborhoods sometimes that say, you know what, I want something different for my young person.
100%.
Where they know what's good for them and what isn't good for them. So I mean, like, it's just, I mean, it's people that aren't willing to roll their sleeves up, that have a lot of the half-hearted, half-wit suggestions. But I mean, opportunity, and I get it, right? Oh, it's Westside, and what's he gonna say? No, I'm 4 kids, and that's clear on my track record, coming from Burke to Northwest to North. Like, I fully understand, and I think parents that have been around me or I've coached their kids, like, they like, it is what it is.
Yeah,
it clearly is what it is. It's a tough situation, though.
Yeah, and again, there's no easy, simple fix. Obviously, I think they're the people in power and in charge of making decisions at the top. They are examining this stuff. They're considering schedule solutions, like what they can do to limit this type of thing.
I didn't want to unfairly pin NSAA.
Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, and we'll talk to Mitch Sherman later on, but obviously that tweet drew a lot of. The NSAA works for the charter member schools, right? So it has to come from the charter member schools. It's not an NSAA thing, and they unfairly get a lot of the criticism, but they work for the schools.
And the nature of sports, of competitive sports at whatever level, is they're all, in order to have teams that are really good, you're going to have teams that aren't at the other end. Somebody always has to win and somebody always has to lose. You're never going to get balance, true parity. And there's nothing NSA can do to fix that, to make schools more attractive to prospective student athletes.
Yeah.
Like that's way beyond sports. Like, that's a trickle down effect of just the landscape of everything. Sports is part of it. Sports are the most visible thing that we get to see. We don't get to see all the stuff, all the academics and everything, the extracurriculars outside of sports, all that type of stuff. We don't see what goes into that at all these various different schools and parts of the city, parts of wherever it may be. So there's so many different factors that go into this that, it's on them to look at things that they can change to make it better, but there is never going to be a fix.
For a healthy competitive experience. It's not balance.
Yes, 100%.
That's just not what it's going to be.
So
as we jump down to
maybe the game of the week in Class A.
Yeah, this was the one. So we got done a little bit early. We got a chance to watch this one as well with the feed availability. This was an unbelievable game with Kearney and Millard North.
Kearney up to 3 after somehow they pulled out a 36-33 triple overtime win, I believe, in against Millard North. And the Mustangs were up 24-10 midway through the third quarter, and Kearney managed to tie it up, and then kind of the score in the overtimes are 12-9.
Yeah.
So kind of
kick fest.
Yeah. Well, no, you would think that, but that wasn't necessarily the case.
For the 33-30, what was the score that made it 33-30?
That game winning kick.
Yeah.
So you go and tied. Kane Vermont gets a touchdown. They go for 2. They don't get it.
Were you surprised they went for 2 early? Either wanted the game over.
Yeah, I think probably take it in your own hands, put more pressure on the defense.
Yeah. They
didn't get it, and then Kearney responds with a touchdown, and they don't convert the extra point. So we play on. Millard North, or Kearney kicked the field goal. Then Millard North answered with a field goal, and then Millard North got the ball, and Zach Wolf forced a fumble. Bryce Anderson recovered it, got the turnover, kicked the field goal, game winner there for Jake Kratzel, and Kearney pulls it out 36-33 in triple overtime. So just kind of a wild, interesting way to get to that final score there, but heck of a play by the Kearney defense there to give themselves a chance to win that.
Yeah, go back to and you heard the conversation we had with Coach Cool after the Millard South game, and he challenged himself and his staff and the kids to just kind of battle back and hang in there, right? And they'd have other opportunities at it, and they go on the road and play a school and come out with a win. And that's a school that has 40-some% of their enrollment is due to open enrollment in Millard North.
Yeah.
Right. So it can be done.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Novacek had a good game at quarterback there, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, 40 yards on the ground, but they got Samuel Noctigal going too. To add that compliment there. 17 carries for 94 yards and touchdown. A lot of the season, it's been just Novacek accounting for the majority of their yards. So to be able to kind of keep things more balanced in this game is probably key to their win. Zaire Legrone had a 77-yard touchdown reception there, and also had a touchdown on the ground. And Sawyer Schilke, 13 tackles, a sack.
We talked last week. He's pretty capable.
He's double-digit tackles every single week.
He's a tough customer and a high IQ.
And an impact player. Like, he makes impact plays. It's not just racking up tackles, and he's out there behind the line of scrimmage making plays or whatever. So he's a force to deal with. So really good win there by Kearney. And they moved up to 3. Elkhorn South dropped to 4 with the loss. Millard North dropped to 5 after that loss. So that's your top 5 there you're looking at.
Hoping those guys stay healthy. The Mooberry injury did not look great. Tyson Terry has got an injury. That some of these guys, the high-profile guys, and we talk about it all the time, staying healthy is part of it. Yeah. You need some good fortune to make these long runs in a sport like this.
Yeah.
So hoping the best for those guys.
They got Bogots in the end zone a couple of times. Vermont's had a couple of touchdowns there from Millard North. They'll need those guys big time this week because they got another big one on Friday with Omaha Central, who is up to number 8 after a big win. We'll talk about in a moment here there, but that's the one of 2 looks like ranked games in Class A this week, with Omaha North and Bellevue West being the other one there. North coming off a 48-7 win at South Sioux City. They get Bellevue West, who took care of business against Lincoln Southwest. The Thunderbirds
Bellevue West starting to run the football a little better now with the move.
So, although an 86-yard touchdown run for for Tristan James there, we'll pad those numbers a little bit. But no, they got another good game for Will Anderson there, almost 100 on the ground, 200 plus through the air. Jermaine Green had a great game for them. 28-14 was the final against Lincoln Southwest. And honestly, some interesting officiating calls that it looked like Bellevue West may have gotten in the end zone twice. That they were called short. Yeah,
Coach Sauter, Mike was a little flummoxed over that, but I didn't see it, so I didn't speak on it. But
and there was
because they played Thursday, so he was on the Friday show, and it did not sound super favorable.
Yeah, and then
I know Coach Huffman wasn't happy. I talked to him Sunday.
Yeah. There was a questionable call as well that kept Southwest drive alive that led to one of their second touchdown. So a little bit weird. The score maybe doesn't totally. It was 28-7 at halftime there, and then they didn't score again. Bellevue Weston, but.
Given what Coach Martin's gone through this year with trying to keep his guys healthy and their lack of depth, this may be one of his better coaching jobs.
Yeah, they're hanging in there.
Sitting at 5-2, and I guess you'd call he may not call them good losses, but we got them in the opener. I mean they've battled.
Yeah,
that team has battled.
Yeah, so nearly 400 total yards of offense for Anderson, like I mentioned. Jermaine Green 4 catches, 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. So. Yeah, and 4 catches, 3 touchdowns, pretty good record there. They got him on a couple of deep ones. Great routes, good throws from Anderson. Does throw a pretty ball there.
Yes, he does.
Big one this week with Bellevue West and Omaha North.
That has got seedings written all over it.
Yeah.
What half the bracket do you want to be on?
Yeah, we're getting at that point now where it's starting to take shape, and you can start to see, all right, what the implications are for every game down the stretch here. And we mentioned Millard South. They had half the game forfeited. Benson isn't going to play them in week 9 either. So right now, Millard South is sitting there at 7.5 games essentially playing this year. So what impact will that have on the wild card points and all that? So still a lot to be figured out left there, but a couple weeks left here. We are officially in the stretch run. Mentioned Omaha Central, really impressive win for them.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, kind of, if you wanted to control your own destiny, had to have it.
27-7 was the final there against Papillion-LaVista, and Papio had a 7-6 lead early in the second quarter, and then Central just shut them out the rest of the way, 21-0 to end the game. And BJ Newsome just continues to put up numbers. He is having a heck of a season.
He's a good player. And we talked about his poise, kind of his presence. And early on, so late last year and early this season, buying time and his ability to scramble. he's kind of added that run game dimension to an already pretty good right arm. I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, and he had 17 and 21 for 301 yards and a touchdown, and also 10 carries for 46 yards and 2 more touchdowns.
Yeah. Good player.
Yeah. Torrey Pittman, another good player, 4 catches, 135 yards, and a 67-yard touchdown.
I was waiting for his breakout. Like, he's kind of been going along, flying under the radar offensively.
Yeah.
Finally has his breakout game.
Yep. Kylan Haney added a rushing touchdown there.
Another good player.
Papio, they moved the ball well enough. They just couldn't quite finish off possessions and get in the end zone.
Yeah.
Leggett had 272 yards, decent yards per carry rushing for Parr and DJ Akmo. But again, just 1 touchdown the whole game. I
thought the rankings I thought it was a little hard. They dropped all the way to 10.
Yeah, I thought that was.
And I was like, it didn't seem right because I think they're better than 10.
Yeah, especially with Millard West moving ahead of them. That's one that.
You talk about another good coaching performance. Yeah. I said that when they were 0-4. Like
now 3-4 that get a win this week, and they have Lincoln North Star on Friday. Get a win. That's you're back to 400 heading into that final game, or back to 500. So
we'll win we'll win their district.
Yeah. Papio better than 10, but 10 is where they come in this week. Just the way the coaches' votes shook out. I'm sure they've got Fremont on Friday, and that's a Fremont team who you talk about district seeding points, all that stuff. Fremont pulled off a 28-14 win against Creighton Prep.
District.
Yeah, it was a wild night.
Yeah, and they just come off. We beat them, whatever it was, and to bounce back and play that way, I think playing at home really helped them. Because obviously we're scouting that game because it's one of the games before the week we play Prep. It's a different team than played us.
Yeah,
I felt like they came off the ball, really good at the quarterback spot. That was a good football team, and we liked 7 going into that too at the running back spot.
And Aiden Boaboy, great game. He had 30-yard passing touchdown and 21 carries, 156 yards and 2 touchdowns.
He's tough.
Fortunately, he got hurt at the end of that game. So they won the game, but that's maybe a bit of a Pyrrhic victory, unfortunately, for them moving forward because they don't have an easy finish to the season. But Brooks Eiler had a good game as well, 90 yards on the ground and a touchdown for them. So really good win for Fremont. And now, they get Papio here. The Monarch team looking to bounce back.
So the next 2 for Papio, they become must win.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you got to finish it off well
because their only district win if they beat us. If they don't beat us,
Prep,
that would be their only district win.
Yeah,
isn't that something?
We said that district is wild, and the fact that even the last team in the district is getting wins, like projecting going in what you would expect to be the bottom seed of that district. It's even better than we thought it would be.
Yeah, you're right. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's a tough district.
So all the teams that do make it out of that district to the playoffs will be well tested. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you know who's saying boo-hoo? Elkhorn North, Blair. Those guys are like, oh, really? You want to talk tough district? I'll show you a tough district.
Yeah, speaking of, moving on to Class B here, Bennington 35-7 win over Elkhorn. Sets up a big one with Scott this week. And 46 straight wins, I believe, for Bennington now.
So I was way off. I said 41 last week.
Yeah.
I lose track. It's been a lot.
It's something like they're in the 40s. I might have miscounted, but I think that's what it was. Something like 3 years straight undefeated.
They're a
heck of a program. Yep. No matter who they plug in, different guys, different skill guys every year, and they just continue to roll.
How about the offense starting to continue to kind of round into playoff form?
Yep. Well, continuing to be balanced where they can throw it, they can run it. They've got Goods in the backfield. They got Houston Hill as a dual threat guy, 123 yards and 2 touchdowns this week. Goods had 2 touchdowns, 137 yards on the ground. Cooper Johnson, 3 catches, 102 yards, 2 receiving. Seems like different guy
every week.
Yeah, lead him receiving every week. Yeah. So like they've got a lot of options. Lordson 13 tackles, Bover 11 tackles, Tyson Fleischman had 10 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a forced fumble that he recovered and returned 36 yards for a touchdown. Cole Miller had 7 tackles and a pick. So again, they just got so many. Every time I go through this box score, there's like, oh, there's a new name having a huge game, making impact plays for them on defense. So, yeah, it's
setting up a collision course, at least early. We're a little premature. I shouldn't probably say that, but Seward coming in at number 2, and we continue to be impressed by their march.
Although we talked about tough schedules, and Blair hanging in there.
Blair is so bad. Blair's pretty battle tested.
Yeah, 20-13. Seward pulled that one out. Blair was up 13-7 after a fumble recovery return for a touchdown. But Seward found a way to score the last 2 touchdowns to pull that one out. Blair did a good job of limiting Haas on completely less than half his passes, 153
First
yards.
time we've seen him struggle.
Yeah. Did score 2 touchdowns on the ground, but only 16 yards, so they're short yardage deals. Edison Knott had a big game, though, in the backfield to balance him out, 100 yards and a touchdown. Also 7 tackles and a fumble recovery on defense there. So, yeah, that's tough win for Seward there. Blair, we know what they're facing, but they haven't quit. They're still continuing to battle there, with Templar leading that way. And this week, Seward has York on Friday.
So this next one, it kind of surprised me because they did leapfrog Elkhorn North, who we'll get to in a second, that had the big win, but Scottsbluff comes in at number 3.
Well, and that's a Hastings team that had been receiving votes for a lot of the year. They cracked the top 10 at one point, and a 41-6 win for Scottsbluff there, kind of making a statement. Nate Kelly, 6 of 8 passing, 108 yards and 2 touchdowns, 15 carries, 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. So just another 4 touchdowns.
Continuing to warm the cockles of your heart, JP.
Yeah. Des Smith, though, 24 carries, 204 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Every week, they got 2 guys that that you have to stop, and nobody has been able to do it.
Legit ground pound.
Yeah.
And it's coming.
Yep. But also Braxton Burford, 5 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 tackles and a sack on defense there. So adding a little bit of the passing game just to keep you honest. They'll run, and then hit you over the top. Kelly's good enough to make those plays, and they got some guys that can go catch it for him. So this week, Scottsbluff has McCook receiving votes there on Friday.
It's a 5-2 McCook team.
Yeah. Coming off a 14-12 win against Ogallala. Gritted that one out.
Little neighborly battle right there.
Yep. And coming at number 4, Elkhorn North. We said, all right, dropping that one to Elkhorn kind of surprised everybody. How do you respond to that? You're going to dig yourself a hole if you don't come back and get this win. And sure enough, they had that resiliency, pulled out a 28-21 win over Scott to hand them their first loss.
Yeah, health at the quarterback spot will be key for Elkhorn North going forward, just because how they're built up front. Right? Yeah. It's a big, strong team, and we know they can run the football.
Yeah, and that's what they did in this one for sure. Tinglehoff, 36 carries for 190. They've kept his workload pretty light for much of the season.
And I think last week it was mid-20s, right? Like 25 or 26, and now they're ramping him up. Yeah. So here he comes.
It's almost 200 yards on the ground, at a receiving touchdown as well, 5 tackles on defense. And we talked about Beach and what he's done this season, but Alex Uckman has had a monster year for them, both sides of the ball. He had a 14-yard rushing touchdown, 3 catches for 77 yards and touchdown pass receiving, 4 pass breakups on defense, and the game-sealing interception there at the end.
Pretty complete, or no? Yeah, that's pretty complete.
Yeah. They also got
Van Dyke late.
59-yard pick 6 for AJ Palladino. So that defense, and that's, I said, we talked about how well-rounded Elkhorn North is with impact players all over that team, and a lot of guys on that defense that can make plays, and that's how they won this game. Yeah. Again, two huge plays on defense there really was the difference there, because Scott had a chance at the end there. They had the ball last to go back and tie it or go for 2, whatever, to win.
And what ultimately was a 1-score game, and one of those scores is a defensive touchdown. Yeah. They did their end up. They held up their end of it.
And I mean, Van Dyke and Kaliga still had monster games. Van Dyke threw for 362 yards, another school record. He just keeps pushing that up. Had 2 touchdowns and also a rushing touchdown. Kaliga had 8 catches, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Had a pick on defense, but in the end, Elkhorn North made a few more plays and got back on track. And now both those teams are sitting there at 6-1 heading into the stretch run here. Elkhorn North gets Gretna East on Friday, and we mentioned Scott going to number 1 Bennington as well on Friday. I believe that will be our big game chain this week.
Uh-oh. getting out on the road, kind of, but not really.
It's so Hurrdat Sports will have your updates for that one. You can follow them there. Waverly,
which might be okay because we play on Thursday. Although I'll be gone, I'll be in Bloomington.
Yeah, you got that old
doggone
one of your like 5 different jobs. Yeah, you got try to keep it all balanced there.
I'm trying.
Waverly there at number 6, 41-0 against Plattsmouth. And the kind of noteworthy thing there is they got Nathan Axman back working in on offense. Different, 8 carries, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches for 69 yards. Just one of the better athletes in Class B there. Is a difference maker for them. Carter McMillan had a good game, about 200 yards of offense and a couple of scores there. And now Waverly this week, they get Norris, number 7 Norris on Friday. So we got 6 versus 7. And Friday's got some monster matchups.
They do, and it's just part of that grindy, grueling schedule that it seems like we always talk about in Class B.
Yep. Norris coming off 44-0 win against Beatrice. Crew Moeller had a monster game, or 111 yards on the ground, touchdown. It had 5 rushing touchdowns as a team, so got their run game going there. So that'll be a fun one between Waverly and Norris. Gretna over 500 now with a 51-14 win over Plattview. Michael Knudsen, 219 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 more touchdowns on the ground. Clay Gaethje had 21 carries, 171 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So they got the running complement to go with Knudsen and all those wideouts there going there. So Gretna back on track a little bit here, and they get Ralston on Friday. We mentioned Elkhorn. 35-7 against Bennington. That's basically, there aren't many teams that are going to do much better than that. So Elkhorn,
especially with that defense.
Yeah, and they get Blair this week. So those are two teams that are certainly battle tested. Faced a lot really tough schedule here facing off. And then finally at 10 is Pius X. 42-8 win over Lincoln Standing Bear, and they got Beatrice this week. I think couple worth mentioning in the C classes there. Previewed the kind of battle for Columbus, and number 4 Lakeview pulled it out against Scotus Central Catholic. 26-22 was the final there. And Lakeview go ahead touchdown with about 2 minutes to go and to pull that one out. And Scotus dropped down to 10. Lakeview remains at number 4. And then Ashland Greenwood hold on at number 2, but they had to survive against Roncalli, kind of a comeback.
That's 2 gutty weeks in a row that
got up big early and then had to survive, come back
Boys Town, and then again Roncalli. So they'll be battle tested, that's for sure. That's a quality staff too.
And AG survived 3 turnovers. They had 2 picks and a fumble lost. So that's certainly an area that they got to get cleaned up when you face a team with a little bit more firepower to take advantage of those turnovers. But they got Cale Smith going on the ground, 157 yards and 3 scores, which is big for them because we know they can air it out with Tondras and all those wideouts. You add a running game to that makes them that much harder to play against. So those are kind of the big results in C1.
You see my Central City Bison sitting right there at number 6. That offense is explosive.
Zickman, another big game. He had 4 touchdowns, 207 yards. So yeah, you mentioned how explosive they can be. That's certainly a fun team to watch there. Up to number 6, right behind Boys Town. And
the loss came in a 55-54 kind of game.
That was insane.
They can score
100%. In C2, Malcolm bounced back with a 27-19 win over. It was 9 versus 8 there. Malcolm jumped back up to 7. Raymond Central suffered their first loss, dropped down to number 9 there. And then we mentioned Norfolk Catholic against Oakland Craig. No problem for Norfolk Catholic, 48-21 win. Those both teams remained where they were in the polls after that one. Norfolk Catholic just
pretty good, yeah.
Oakland Craig moved the ball. It's just they couldn't get stops to hang up with to keep up with Norfolk Catholic there. So again, another number 1 team looking dominant at the top of the class there.
For the matchups, who do you think is the best matchup? Is it Battle Creek?
We'll find out this week. That's the matchup here. We got Norfolk Catholic against Battle Creek on Friday, and that's 1 versus 4. And we got 3 versus 5 with Hartington Cedar Catholic against Oakland Craig. So I mentioned, you look at there's some really good matchups here
it's good
throughout the various classes. So I guess let's reevaluate that question next week after we get to see it.
I'll hold that thought.
Yeah. I mean, we don't get Bishop Neumann. We've already seen them against Norfolk Catholic, and Norfolk Catholic
holding firm at number 2 still.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see what Harding or Catholic does this week against Oakland Craig. Compare that to what happened with Norfolk Catholic. But I mean, the number ones, obviously in A, we've got 2 of them, but the number ones in each class, in B and C1 and C2, they're all looking pretty clearly established, and everybody's chasing them at this point.
And you may say the same, and I've got to see Sandy Creek. You may say the same thing about Stanton too, because of what they brought back in 8-man.
Yep. Not much, really, very little change, if any, at the top of the 8-man and 6-man polls there. So the best teams kind of hanging steady there as we kind of get ready for the postseason. There, the playoffs coming up for them.
Yeah, I'm always excited. How about some shout outs?
Yep. Well, start with just the 3 guys that are just too good for C1. 3 running backs there. I mention them every week, but Quinn Bailey, Shadron Sr., 16 for 222. Didn't hit 300 yards this week, but he didn't have to because he had 5 touchdowns, 2 2-point conversions. He's also punted for them 3 times there in a 54-12 win against Alliance. Mentioned Bishop Neumann and Connor Booth, who I got to see in person for the first time a couple weeks back against Malcolm. And
good as advertised.
Very, very impressive. It's there were a lot of holes for him to run through in that game in particular, so it didn't necessarily get a glimpse into what kind of vision he has, but in terms of the ability to run through tackles, to plant his foot and hit a hole hard, the breakaway speed, like there's a lot to like with his game.
Nice.
And 11 carries for 232 yards and 5 touchdowns at a 50-0 win against Conestoga. So 232 yards on 11 carries. I'll let you do the math on that yards per carry average. Oh boy.
Chunky.
Yeah. And then finally, Wahoo Jr., and finally this group, Kip Brigham there, 7 carries for 183 yards and 6 touchdowns. 7 carries, 6 touchdowns, 183 yards. It's also had a 2-point conversion and 4 tackles, returned to punt 12 yards, 63-6 win against Logan V. Scribner Snyder. He is at 64 carries for 1,070 yards and 22 touchdowns. Almost 17 yards a carry.
Yeah, and he scores 1 out of every 3 times he touches it.
That's he also has 2 receiving touchdowns, 175 yards on 6 catches. So maintaining that
3-1.
Yeah, that's
it's incredible.
Yeah, and he's got a really, really good team around him. Obviously, with everybody they brought back, makes it easy for him. But man, that is some special production out of those 3. So those are the guys that we hear about every single week. Again, like, man, the running backs in C1 are just so impressive.
It's a good year. Really, really good year.
I mentioned him before, but Boone Central Jr. Brogan Bennis had 38 carries for 283 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also had 4 tackles on defense, a couple of punts, and a 23-7 win against St. Paul there. So really carrying a heavy load there and producing. Mitchell Sr., Adrian Garza, 5 of 10 passing for 113 yards and a touchdown. Also 41 carries for 221 yards and 4 touchdowns, plus 9 tackles and a pick on defense. And he had a 26-yard kickoff return and a 41-38 win at previous number 7 Kearney Catholic. Yeah. Big win there for Mitchell.
And a big performance.
Yeah, Garza, that's just, you need every bit of his production there to pull out that win. So that was a really impressive one. Superior Junior Kyler Boyles completed a 44-yard pass and also ran the ball 22 times for 187 yards and 5 touchdowns. Added 7 tackles, including 2 for loss and a sack on defense. Also punted 3 times. Was their kicker, their point after, hit 4 extra points there and a 40-14 win against Hastings St. Cecilia. They're doing a little bit of everything there. Donovan Trumbull Sr., Ethan Ballard, their backup quarterback, their starter got hurt, done for the season there. He stepped in there, 15-20 for 312 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he also had 2 rushing touchdowns and a 49-27 win against Fillmore Central. So you're getting 300 yards and 5 touchdowns from your backup quarterback there. Impressive job by him stepping in for those guys.
Hard to get that from starters sometimes.
Seriously. And then finally, upset for Adams Central, pulling off a win against Cozad, 29-26 with the touchdown late. Quarterback Jackson Shadrow, 25 for 39 for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had 49 yards on the ground and 7 tackles there. So really good win there for Adams Central. Pull that one out.
Pretty complete. Doesn't get any better than that, especially down the stretch. As we talked about, week 8, week 9, it will be highly, highly competitive for some of these district races. We'll be back next week. It's another episode of NEB Preps. That's my man, Jacob Padilla. Don't you dare miss us.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.